And it's breaking news out of Lebanon. It's widely believed that Prime Minister Hassan Diab and his entire cabinet could be handing in their resignations soon. 3 government ministers have so far resigned amid the political fallout from the catastrophic blast at the Beirut port on Tuesday evening. Economists are predicting that the disaster could end up wiping up to 25% off of the country's GDP, considering the cost of rebuilding the city. Lebanese police firing tear gas on Sunday night to try to disperse protesters, blocking a road near Parliament in yet another day of anti-government demonstrations. A fire breaking out at an entrance to Parliament Square as demonstrators tried to break into a closed-off area. So for more on this breaking news story, our Middle East correspondent Emily Rose joins us now live. So Emily, 3 ministers have already resigned over the situation in Lebanon. Now there is much speculation that Prime Minister Hassan Diab might step down too, and in fact the entire cabinet may be resigning. What is the latest information you can tell us?
Yes, Benita, it seems like it might be deja vu all over again. Hassan Diab said, it seems, to submit his resignation, dissolve the government, and that would lead Lebanon to another round of elections. This leaves a lot of people wondering, even if Lebanon does go to another round of elections, will it be able to actually change, make these big systemic changes that it's being asked to in government? And a lot of people believe that even if we do see Lebanon go to another round of elections, things won't actually really change for the Lebanese people on the ground.
So talking about the fact that there could well be yet another election, what does this all mean for the people of Lebanon right now? So many people have been left homeless after this blast. Of course, COVID-19 as well, not to mention the economic crisis. The situation is so dire. What answers are the people of Lebanon getting right now?
Yes, Benita, 300,000 people left homeless. That's the latest estimate from the Red Cross, and it looks like Lebanon has a long road to recovery. But we have to remember that even before this, about 25% of the Lebanese economy, about 25% of people were out of work. They were unemployed. A third of people were living under the poverty line. And Lebanon itself had one of the largest debts in the world, the third, in fact, globally. So we're already looking at a country that was facing major economic challenges. Let's also remember that Lebanon doesn't exactly have its own autonomous economy. It largely relies on import. And as you mentioned, those port blasts, they really cut off the lifeline to import into the country. There's only one other major port, the port of Tripoli in Lebanon. Before that starts to get back on its feet and start to funnel more goods into Lebanon, there will be a long road to try to get supplies and goods to people. There will also be a price hike. And what we could see is mass hunger en masse in Lebanon due to that price hike. So any government that's walking in is going to face a major economic crisis. I've spoken to activists on the ground and people who are healthcare workers who are working at hospitals there right now to treat the wounded. And they say it could be years until we see recovery and the ability for Lebanese hospitals to serve the needs of those who were affected by these blasts. It's really facing a major challenge, a long road to recovery, perhaps years in fact, and again now facing these political challenges in government and being asked, especially by global donors, to make those systemic changes in government that it needs to make in order to prove that those funds won't go to waste if they're donated to this country.
And Emily, when we look right now at the political situation and the speculation about what might be happening really later on this evening in terms of mass resignations, talk us through the 3 resignations so far. What reasons did those ministers have for stepping down? It wasn't only about the blasts.
Yes, some of them were mostly pressured by the protesters. We're seeing a lot of the protesters even before complaining about economic conditions. The fact that the Lebanese people, a lot of them couldn't make it from month to month, that they were hungry because of price hikes and because the economy wasn't sustainable, mostly because of corruption and systemic forms of corruption. Those were a lot of even echoed in the chants that we saw when the protests kicked off over the weekend. We saw them using the words regime and corruption against members of the government. So those are a lot of the allegations being made by these protesters, that there's systemic corruption. And here I'll just mention that a lot of the resignations that we saw earlier came from a Christian bloc, which in the government, which serves as contra to the Iranian-backed Hezbollah in government. And that was worrisome to those who wanted to see a counterbalance to Hezbollah within the country. But now it looks as though a lot of the outrage is being pointed not just at it's being pointed across the board. It's being pointed at anyone who's in charge, those who sit in Hezbollah factions or Hezbollah United factions, and those who sit in Christian factions. It looks as though people are angry. They're taking their allegations to the streets, and it's being pointed at those in power.
And breaking down all those developments as they happen. Thank you so much to our Middle East correspondent, Emily Rose. More to come from Emily in the coming hours. Well, for more on this developing story, our correspondent, Yotam Confino, is in studio now. So, Yotam, I want to speak specifically about the relationship that Hassan Diab has specifically with Hezbollah and what a resignation, which is widely expected to be happening shortly, would mean for Hezbollah.
Well, first of all, when Hassan Diab became prime minister back in January, it was already widely believed that he was some sort of a Hezbollah puppet. He's an ally of Hezbollah, and they basically appointed him. So since January, it has really been called a Hezbollah government, given Hezbollah's strong hold on this government. And this resignation, which we are expecting in a couple of hours from now, will really hurt Hezbollah a lot. Not only are they under a lot of pressure from investigations, and in general, after these mass explosions, they're under a lot of pressure because people in Lebanon are fed up, so to say, with Hezbollah, with the way that they're running the country. And they also, of course, they're suspicious of Hezbollah because they know that this particular military organization, terrorist group, if you will, they have a strong hold in the port of Beirut where the explosions happened. So not only are they under pressure because of the explosions and because of the possible responsibility, but also because in general, they have been running this country to the ground. And with Hassan Diab resigning, that's just another major blow to this terrorist organization, depending on who's looking at it.
And Hassan Diab himself on the weekend had made mention of possible early elections. Talk us through what this would mean right now, given the uncertainty and the dire situation in Lebanon as we speak.
Look, I think a lot of people would probably welcome this, in hoping that there would be a new government really that could take over. Maybe some fresh blood could come into the Lebanese political scene. But look, it's been a political chaotic scene for years. And to have another round of elections in the middle of a pandemic and in the middle of explosions will be very, very chaotic, so to say. So I think it will be very split, really. But I think a lot of Lebanese people would probably welcome this election, yeah.
Yotam Confino, stay with us in studio. There's more to discuss right now. For more insight on this developing story, we welcome former Deputy Head of Assessment at the Israeli Military Intelligence, Jacques Naria. Jacques, thank you so much for your time. An unprecedented situation in Lebanon right now. What do you make of reports that Hassan Diab and his cabinet may be stepping down shortly?
We are, well, we are running very fast into an impasse, meaning that, it's a deadlock. And if somebody believes that elections are around the corner, where he's dead wrong, because at this point, the president is not interested in changing the members of parliament, because he wants this parliament to remain under 2022, so he can assure his son-in-law to be the next president of Lebanon. So if it is changed, so nobody gives him, give him the possibility or strikes a deal with him that this is what's going to happen with the new parliament. This is one. Second, Lebanon has accustomed us of a governmental political paralysis, and this is what's going to happen today. After the government will resign, there will be an interim government that will last a few months before, if at all, if the government succeeds, if the president succeeds in nominating another prime minister and forming a new government. And then, according to this government, there's a new law for the elections. And this new law has to establish and to create a new political class. You are dreaming. This will not happen in Lebanon.
Right. Jacques Naria, the former Deputy Head of Assessment at the Israeli Military Intelligence, we appreciate